This is Wandering Universe. Today I'll be re-exploring Gympie Pyramid to have a good look at its unusual construction design. So, let's go exploring. Welcome! Yes, what you're seeing in front of you is called Earth, floating out in space within our solar system. But today I'm not going to talk to you about our planetary alignment with the stars or anything else for that matter. I'm going to talk about something different down under. So I'm going to move this globe around. Actually, I'll move around the other way because it's over on the other side of the Pacific Ocean. Yes, and I think you know exactly what I'm talking about. Yes, it's called Australia, the land of down under, as you can see right here. Now, we're going to go right in. Come with me. Come on this journey. Come with me. No, we're not going to New Zealand today. We'll go there another time. So, come with me. Come on board. Come with me. Because guess where we're going today? Yep. This is called Queensland, this big state. It's huge. It's 3 times bigger than the state of Victoria, Tasmania, and South Australia. And that's the Northern Territory. And as you well know, there is a big hunk of a structure called Uluru. Now, we're not going there today. We're going somewhere right here. So I'm going to go in. Going to go right in. No, we're not going to Brisbane today. And yes, these are the islands surrounding the city. Yes, that's the Sunshine Coast. And now, guess we're going to go today. This little area right here, it's called Gympie. Now, going a little bit closer. And I'm going to show you something quite interesting. Have a look at this township for a moment. There's a number of rivers, streams, creeks, and possible lakes flowing in and out from the coastal line. And as you can see, we do have miles and miles of beaches all the way from the Sunshine Coast up to the northern regions of the state. I'm going to go out a little bit. Have a look at this. Have a look at this for a moment. This is Gympie right here. The water level has risen about 100 metres since the last ice age. That was due to the melting of the ice. Look how far it's risen. That has covered an underwater landmass, as you can see right here, where my arrow is pointing, right along here. See this ridge? That was part of Australia. And I believe that if the pyramid was built here, where Gympie is, then obviously there was something that led out to the very coastal edge of this underwater landmass. Now, whether there was a tunnel, a causeway, we don't know. It's hard to know because no one's actually dived underneath these deep waters and investigated. So, that is yet to be known. But all I can say is that if the pyramid was built here, then obviously there would have been a causeway or some sort of dug out channel that went all the way out to the coastal edge of this area right here. Let's go in. So that's the underwater coastal ridge, landmass, and now it's shrunk to this size since the last ice age. Now, let's go in. Okay, here we are. So that's the township of Gympie. The pyramid is actually situated in Victory Heights. So it's just a few kilometres away from the township. Okay, let's go in. So this is the township of Gympie, as you can see here. This is Victory Heights area, and it's on the, I think it's called Connection Road. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's called Connection Road. I haven't been there yet, but I will. And it's situated right here. Yes, on someone's property. Now, this is an earlier photo or earlier image of Google Earth, what it used to look like before the highway is now being built. Right in the middle of this hill, right here. This is Rocky Ridge. And as you can see, it sits in the middle of a farm field. That's the railway line. That's the connecting road. And I still cannot understand why on earth that the state government wants to build a bypass highway. But I may let you in on a little clue, just a little bit. So that's the ridge. The pyramid sits right at the top of this hill. So it's not necessarily a mountain. It is actually a hill, Rocky Ridge Hill. And as you can see, there's a lot of farms surrounding it. So I'll give you a little 3D image. Just you can see, I'll go in a little bit further. Actually go out just a little bit. And I'll give you a little 3D image just so you can see what it actually looks like from the air. So as you can see, it's not a mountain per se, it's just a high hill. So technically speaking, there's something up there or was up there that sat on the flat surface of a hill, as you can see right there. Now, the question is, why was this pyramid, per se, was built on this particular hill? Well, we don't know. A long time ago, someone must have surveyed the area, did a geological mapping of this hill range and said, right, this is where we're going to build the site. This is where we're going to build the pyramid. I don't know why. Could it be that it was built to align with a particular star in the night sky, say the Southern Cross constellation, or one particular star in the Big Dipper, or I call it the saucepan, the long handle? So, could it be that? If so, then a lot of questions need to be answered, because otherwise we'd be left, unsettled as to why it was built on Rocky Ridge Hill on this particular site, right? So, as you can see, that's what it looks like from this angle. So, turn it around, see it from here, and as you can see, that's the township just below down there. So that's Gympie Pyramid for you, situated on Rocky Ridge Hill. And now, let's have some fun and explore some bags of goodies for you on Gympie Pyramid. Enjoy. Australia, the promised land, branded as the lucky country after colonisation. It reaped what it sowed. But there is a monster lurking in the woods, about to rear its ugly head. No, not the economic crisis that is about to ruin the pampered humdrum lives of their savings and their mortgages. History is about to repeat itself. Australia does have secrets. In fact, a ton of them, all kept under lock and key, stamped as top secret. Australia is known for its modern relics, but not of ancient past. Ancient classified relics and ruins that has been kept under the rug for over 200 years. Fortunately, this country wonderfully has uncovered a one-of-a-kind of its own that has stood the test of time before the Marky-Bone Stooges came along and ruined a good thing. Ancient relics. What ancient relics? Australia doesn't have any ancient relics. you think? Ah, yes, we do have an ancient relic that all the Australian history books have kept anonymous. Gympie Pyramid. It's also known as Gympie Pyramid to the local tribe. Nestled only a few kilometres from the quiet township of Gympie, north of Brisbane in Queensland. Gympie shows off its postcard picturesque look of serene natural surrounds and hilly ranges. Once upon a time ago, there once stood an eccentric structure hidden amongst the bushy scrub on Rocky Ridge, located in Victory Heights. There have been several eyewitness accounts from people like Rex Gilroy, Mike Dale, and gold mine surveyors of ancient past who dismissed it as nothing special. It was only until recently this hidden gem was tagged Gympie Pyramid. After spending a lot of time ploughing through photos, reports, the landscape, and people's dubious accounts, something caught my eye: the structure itself. Have a look at this photo. Is this Gympie Pyramid? There is no way of telling when this photograph was taken, nor by whom. From a construction standpoint, it appears to be a squarish shaped design. It's mostly covered in what appears to be gum trees and bush vegetation. The stone blocks formation outline layered steps that do not protrude out like a step pyramid. These stone blocks would have been made of either from limestone or sandstone mixed with a basalt mineral. They look non-uniform, shaped with an uneven depth. Its height stands quite tall and slightly sloped from four sides. The outline brickwork seems coarse, yet upon closer inspection they look neatly stacked with no gaps. It is proportioned to the flat top surface that would have held an apex framework. The base is covered in dense bush scrub that prohibits its precise dimensions. There are between 15 to 20 layers that form the angled slopes on each side. And who is this daring young person standing near the top ledge of this structure? Can anyone identify who this mystery person is? From this angle, the height of this person models the structure's proportions to the true height of the pyramid. Some time ago, I did a video on Gympie Pyramid exploring the architecture giving it weight to its existence. So far, I've been met with strong opposition, stealth on their beliefs that it's still a hoax. Well, I'm about to prove just the opposite. After mulling through the information, I've come across one piece of evidence that stood out like a weeping wound. John Green. Have a look at this picture. There are 13 obelisks placed around a round stone table sits on top of an arced apex. The round table shows a hole in the centre. What was this table used for? What was it made of? Why were these obelisks placed in such a manner? Some say it was a sacrificial altar, but that is highly implausible and far-fetched answer. There are 4 stone-thick layers formed in a circular pattern spiralling down to the base of the mound. These thick layers have a brash arrangement that circle around the mound floor. It appears these large compacted stone blocks were crammed underneath the grassy floor. This well-preserved illustration was drawn by the man himself in 1863. Here is Brett Green narrating his great-grandfather's eyewitness account of this discovery.
Tonight I take notes on the place of my earlier acquaintance today, which was of some mystery. I am astounded that what I had seen before me had indeed survived the passage of time in the manner it had presented itself. I am certain that I was given witness today to some remnants of an ancient culture. Of this I am sure. I cannot, and it is beyond my immediate comprehension, understand why a fear of such a place is displayed by the natives.
The pyramid itself is located near the outskirts of the city of Gympie. First viewing, people do tend to be a little bit disappointed, but it's not until they walk over the site and then they gradually gain the impressions of what it would have looked like just by even looking at the stone circle, the stone walls that still exist. From the facts that we know, it was more of a stepped pyramid platform made of hand-carved or hand-shaped sandstone bricks. It was about 100 feet high and it was around the 200 feet long in all directions. At the top was a structure similar to that of Stonehenge, which we believe was an astrological observatory. John Green's journeys, which sort of basically began in 1851, he conducted 14 journeys with the Aborigines. He was on one particular expedition and they were following the Mary River and they came across over a hill. He looked back with his eyeglass, or his spyglass as he called it, and from that he was able to take further descriptions and drawings of what he had actually seen, and these were the things that formed the basis of the Gympie Pyramid story, because they were the only records that were ever recorded of what was there at that particular time.
I took further wander on the site of the ruins. I turned, and from the high point on a nearby hillock I took my spyglass and viewed the summit whose presence I'd failed to examine at close quarters. There was, it appears to be situated at that very moment, a large stone disc-shaped table mounted on what I believe to be two supporting pillars. I desired closer inspection of the hill mound, for there may be many mysteries to unravel. But the increasing annoyance by the natives of my stolen to take view is... While my companions encircled the rim, continuing their display of fear and entering the place, I came upon a hill mound with walled escarpments of man-made interference. It wound around the near bare hillock, seemingly towards its peak, like a great serpent entwined upon its prey. My thoughts were placed into a quandary as to its purpose, for at the entrance to the terrace pathway there were two stone block edifices, which bore on each of their surfaces outwards the symbols of two serpents entwined as if in battle. I have never seen such complexity.
So, John Green was totally gobsmacked by this discovery. Eat your heart out, Indiana Jones. John Green was a pretty adventurous man who dared himself to step into the unknown. He was guided by the local Aboriginal tribe, as they thankfully never once disturbed nor interfered the intact structure. Neither did he. In fact, his wish was for the world to come to Down Under to explore this totally amazing find. What he discovered was historic, yet there is no mention in any historical archives of this surveyor anywhere in the 1860s records. Why? What's going on? Was he discredited by a group of Machiavellian elitists due to terra nullius? Okay, so you're still shaking your head with antagonism. That'll be right. Well, as a matter of fact, this next picture might change your mind a little. This intriguing illustration depicts a sun-gate obelisk structure. At the top is an engraved symbol of the sun that appears to be chiselled not by hand, but a state-of-the-art precision cutting instrument. This is the only hieroglyph engraved along the Sungate obelisk surface. At the bottom, it shows a wide base that rises to a slender shape, all the way to the top. The pillars are slanted slightly in to each other, holding up the large stone block above. It seems this picture demonstrates the weight of each of the stone blocks, large and heavy, precisely cut and stacked with accuracy without using mortar. This Sun Gate obelisk is adjacent to the base of the mound with a path that stretches directly toward the base. Some say the unique architecture resembles that of Stonehenge, or the pyramids in Sudan, or the palace courtyard of Quetzalcoatl. If you compare all three structures, there is a surprisingly unique similarity on its construction design. Here is a video narrated by Dr. Sam Osmanagic about the Gympie Pyramid construction design.
In front of me is the United Church in the Gympie. This church was first built back in the middle of 19th century, 1868, and then again the second time and the third time, 1890, and it seems that the work was completed only in the 1930s. What is most impressive is the wall behind me. 264 meters of wall that reaches up to 2.5 meters of beautifully dressed stones. Now, what is interesting about these stones? Well, the architects were British, and the people who built it were people who found their home here. It is not in European tradition to build walls or structures with the stones, every one of different size. The way we think about building it is to make blocks or to make bricks, all of them the same size, and then start building. It's very simple and it's very easy to manufacture. So the production is very easy. It's a mass production. You make millions of bricks or blocks and then you build your structures. But here, every stone is of different size. As we can see, there are not only 4 sides rectangular blocks or square blocks, but also blocks with 6 sides. Now, this is something that do not belong to our European tradition. And when we see some of the corner blocks, we have many more sides. We can even count them. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 sizes. Is it something that we do, that we've been doing in the last few centuries? Never. However, is it a tradition of the pre-Inca civilizations in ancient Peru? Of course. So the question is, who had architects and laborers to make hundreds of thousands of blocks, every one of them of different size, and to fit them like this? Not us. We can see that the stones are much older than the white settlements who came here a couple of centuries back, or even British when they first came here 500 years ago. Now, this is not the style of the Aborigines, or to be more precise, of the Origines, or original people of the land. This is something that belonged to somebody else who came here.
Watching the rocky ridge that once stood the mighty ruin was a horror film with no end. Yet, I pushed forward in my investigation and I came across this picture, once again carefully illustrated by John Green. Look closely. There are 2 large obelisks in the foreground with arched peaks. It shows 3 very large stone blocks stacked precisely on top of each other, giving it a long, slender look. Then, in the background, a few meters away, there appears to be 2 stone obelisks. The top section is missing, according to the stone rubble scattered on the ground. Then, further back, you see another 2 obelisks in the exact same formation as the previous. Then, further back, the Sun Gate obelisk showing a large top stone block intact, held up by the pillars. Now, have a closer look at this side of the picture. There is a sloped angled stone wall structure from the base. does this suggest that there was an actual pyramid in close proximity? According to this picture, these stone blocks are individually shaped to unique polygonal dimensions, meaning a very snug fit without gaps or kinks. So, does this picture indicate that John Green witnessed a flat top shaped pyramid that held up a tumulus structure? Was he suggesting that this pyramid, according to John Green's eyewitness account, was built by Mesoamericans? Why was this polygonal stone wall forcefully removed? What really made me stand up and take notice were these two photos. Have a good look at them. Notice the compacted, unkept layer stone platform? Its construction goes hand in hand to that of the stone unkept layer wall in the photo. Could this be the last remnants of this once ancient tumulus platform that stood right on that hill? It is highly plausible these polygonal stone blocks were maliciously removed to create a jazzed up surface hill uniting church wall as a showpiece for the passing by tourists. Remember, these unique stone blocks carried a golden ratio signature and somehow imprudently taken apart and used to showcase their stone masonry construction building techniques during the 1930s Great Depression, a desperate act to jazz up their dying town image. Money stopped flowing through the township and the people were looking for a miracle to survive another year. Hence, the Surface Hill Uniting Church stone wall was the answer, and it was the star attraction that brought in a crowd. The town was saved once again. I'm suspecting this stone polygonal wall does date back to the Mesoamerican or pre-Columbian period. But does that mean they built the tumulus pyramid? Well, we don't know for sure, but it does say that it was built by people before them. This means this discovered ruin was a cover-up. To cover up the fact that others were here before the white Machiavellians arrived. Too embarrassed to admit their flawed strategy of terra nullius failed due to poor diligence, and made every secretive effort to hush it up. Allow Brett Green to explain what happened to John Green in the aftermath of his discovery.
Yeah, well, John Green himself, he was my great-grandfather, and James, of course, was my grandfather, and then, of course, James II, he was my father. Between all of these connections came the references to the Gympie Pyramid story. I had no knowledge of the Gympie Pyramid or the connections with my forebears until I returned here to Gympie in 1981. And at that stage, my father was not too well, and it was there that he actually revealed to me the old wooden chest that he had hidden under his bed. Of course, we knew as kids that he had this wooden chest under his bed, and whenever it wasn't there, we'd try to sneak in to open it and see what was in it. When he realised that he was going to die, he took me aside and he said, "This box is yours. Look after it," he said, because it was one of the most valued possessions that his father and his grandfather had ever owned. "You've got to promise me one thing," he said, "you're not to open it," he said, "until after I go." In due course, when I opened it, I found an amazing hoard of history that was totally unknown to the family, to me, or whatever. And then in those records were the references to the pyramid site. Everything went well until last year, when it was suddenly announced by the government that they intended to build a huge bypass through the outskirts of Gympie City to alleviate the traffic problems. To our surprise and dismay, it was going to cut straight through the whole of the pyramid site. If something else doesn't turn up, or we're unable to verify anything further, this will be the end of the mystery, because it will always remain unsolved. Despite the evidences of John Green, and James Green, and dozens of other people who are all academics in their fields, we've lost the battle, and we can only use the evidences and the recordings and the histories as an anecdote to Australia's history. The Gympie Pyramid story will end with a question mark when that dozer first goes through.
Very little remnants, if any, are still left behind today, such as these large limestone basalt stone blocks. Look at the shape: straight sides, straight line cuts, and smoothed surface with little room for error. Yet they stand on the edge of a hill as if they were taken down on purpose. Could these stone blocks be the last remaining evidence of once stood the Sungate obelisk and others? But don't get too excited about it, folks, cause this structure no longer exists. I mean, why take it down? Terra nullius, I know. Were the people back then so dumb about ancient relics? Didn't anyone have the vision to see its potential to turn it into a vibrant open-air museum? Ignite their sense of adventure, a tourist attraction. They would have made a huge fortune from this curious attraction and encouraged day trips to visit this rare Aussie monument. You know, charge £1 a pop, tour guides by the local tribes, and an artefacts exhibition. Oh, how the money would have rolled in. Instead, they had the fever, the gold fever, to strike it rich in one damn hurry. Now that's disappointing. No one knows if primitive construction tools dating back to the Mesoamerican and pre-Columbian period were used to hammer, saw, and chisel these huge limestone blocks. After examining these photos, there are several of these limestone basalt stone blocks with straight line cuts. Look at them. Due to the hard-wearing mineral of these stones, primitive tools is certainly no match for precision cutting. Even this black and white photo, with no date specified, shows a young man standing at the top edge of a hill, overlooking a large rubble of large stone blocks. It appears these large stone blocks would weigh several tons each. Question is, why were they left in such a disarray? Here is Sam Osmanagic giving his hypothesis on the true nature of this structure.
Of course, they did not have churches, and this wall was not originally here. So, whoever hired people to build this church wall around the church, they would disassemble sections of the walls of previous structures, maybe some type of temples, transported them here and reassembled them again. That was a huge task. The good thing about it, the material was there, the way how they did it was there, so they just had to be careful to move it, to know which section goes where. Some of the more features. Now, we can see several larger blocks, and they surround a little guy over here. It's about 5 by 7 centimeters. For our construction techniques, it doesn't make sense at all. Why would somebody do that? When the Spaniards came to Peru, they conquered the land of Inca and pre-Inca civilization, conquered their most important palaces and temples. And they started using material to build their own palaces and churches. So they used the previous temples as a foundation for their churches. A huge earthquake hit Peru in 1960. The churches, the palaces collapsed, but the previous original walls remained intact. How is that possible? Because of the construction techniques. Why would you do something like this? In a case of the earthquake or tectonic movement, the structure does not collapse. Otherwise, if those four guys were next to each other, it would collapse. But with this little guy here, it gives flexibility to the structure. So the structure can breathe and then go back to the original position. The ancients were smart. So it seems to me that there was some anthropogenic activities. There was some work by people, by humans, not on very large scale, but on rather large scale. And they were using not stones like this one, this belongs to the other builders, but different stones. They were collecting the stones. You can see the natural bedrock over there, so they are using smaller pieces, building dry walls. So on one side, when you look at the shape, it was getting an idea that it was like a stepped built structure. So we have a proof of building. So I would say that somebody was reshaping existing here. With so much stones, I think they had a reason to believe that energetically this was rather potent place. And once you have a pointy hill, it does move the energy inside, getting it to the top. But you need something to initiate the movement of the energy. And in most cases, it is the water flow, the water stream. On our way to the Gympie Pyramid, we did find a water stream. So once you have the movement of the water, it initiates the movement of the energy. The next thing, of course, are potential cavities, tunnels. Cavities amplify the energy. To realize that whoever was reshaping the hill or helping this hill look like a pointy hill, something like a tumulus, that they did know secrets of the energy. So to answer the question if this is a pyramid, technically it is not a pyramid. We do not have four triangular faces, we do not have obvious corners, we do not have even the same slope, we do not have side orientation, but what we do have is shaping on rather large scale using thousands and thousands of tons of stones, and that was a huge undertaking for whoever came here and most probably met original people of this land. So I would say those builders, they had the knowledge of construction, energy, spirituality, and most probably astronomy. When was the last time window for such civilizations worldwide? It was 5,000 to 8,000 years before present. That was the last one, with several other periods with such type of the walls, even going back 55,000 years before present.
In my last video on Gympie Pyramid, I showed a number of artifacts found at the site. Many of those artifacts are on display at the Gympie Museum and through a private collector via appointment only. But on this occasion, I agree with Dr. Osmanagic that this is not a pyramid, but more likely a tumulus or cumulus mound. But did this style of structure existed elsewhere? Whilst I examined John Green's illustrations, I came across these hieroglyphs. These hieroglyphs have a cross-reference to petroglyphs and pictographs that tell a story. Upon close examination, a light bulb moment struck me like lightning as I recognised a few of these strange symbols. I had a recollection of seeing these symbols depicted from another culture across the other side of the globe. And you wouldn't believe where I found them. Compare these symbols with these Navajo motifs. If you have a look at these pictures, what does this suggest? The symbols suggest a pre-Columbian period derived from an ancient culture called the Valdivians. They settled in Ecuador between 3500 to 1500 BC. Also, look closely at the ancient Syrian writing. They migrated to parts of Central America, such as Ecuador, after the melting of the ice during the last ice age, say around 12,800 years ago, and settled in the jungle terrain like Guatemala and Ecuador. The Native Americans' language also correlate with the ancient Mayan, Inca, Aztec, and many Mesoamerican cultures that travelled far and wide seeking land to build a new world. So, do these hieroglyphs derive from Mesoamerican period, including North America? Did they make the treacherous voyage in their canoes across the Pacific Ocean? It's possible they did make the long journey from South America, crossing Polynesia before embarking on Aussie shores. What's weird though is that these hieroglyphs were never studied by anyone in the academia world. Why? Well, 'cause no numbnut had the gumption to properly translate them. There's nothing taboo about them. I mean, how stupid do you have to be? This is the interior chamber from one of the pyramids in Meroe, Sudan. Look at the hieroglyphs along the walls carefully. It shares similar symbols with that of this illustration. This is the Kokashki Pyramid Mound in Ecuador. It dates back to the pre-Columbian period and sits on a 83.9 hectare site. It consists of 15 flat-top pyramids, 9 ramps, and 21 large circular funerary mounds. They also found these tripod ceramics at the site. So, was Dr. Osmanagic right on his analysis that the polygonal wall design is Mesoamerican? Pre-Columbian style construction dating way back? If the stone wall around the church was moved from the site and carefully reassembled to build this wall, then obviously some Gympie stonemason possessed knowledge of South American and Mexican pyramidal construction. A Freemason perhaps? Gympie Pyramid may be a good marketing line to attract tourists, but in hindsight it's actually a colossal mound, so I'll name it Gympie Mound. This mound structure was 100 feet high by 200 feet long on each side. Its cumulus mound held some sort of round apex with 13 obelisks supported by layered platforms that led to the top and 2 big obelisks at the bottom that pointed directly to the 13 obelisks. It is possible to conceptualize that there were numerous tunnels linked to several underground rivers and streams that flowed out to the coast. A causeway may have been dug, linked from the base of the mound. Unfortunately, many of these tunnels have been completely trashed and sealed off for over 100 years. What makes it more remarkable are these leftover stone-cut marks, untouched along the surface of these huge rocks. This very spot is being excavated for a bypass highway to ease traffic congestion in a quiet country town? That seems odd. Now, why would they do such a thing? Well, it goes something like this.
These men can learn the value of an honest day's labor while providing a valuable service to the community and at a bare minimum of expense to Mr. and Mrs. John Q. taxpayer.
Of course, Norton failed to mention to the press that bare minimum of expense is a fairly loose term. There are 100 different ways to skim off the top. Men, materials, you name it. And oh my Lord, how the money rolled in.
If this keeps up, you're going to put me out of business.
Ed.
This pool of slave labor you got, you can underbid any contractor in town.
Ed, we're providing a valuable community service here.
Well, that's fine for the papers, but I've got a family to feed. Sam, and we go back a long way. I need this new highway contract. I don't get it, and I go under. That's a fact. You just have some of this fine pie my missus made specially for you. You think about that.
Ned, I wouldn't worry too much about this contract. Seems to me I already got my boys committed elsewhere. You be sure and thank Maisie for this fine pie.
And behind every shady deal, behind every dollar earned, there was Andy, keeping the books.
So, the Gympie people are fighting tooth and nail to protect it from what you just witnessed, whilst the rest of the Gympie township stand back with a slack-jaw stare. I wonder what was the payoff to the Gympie population that they just couldn't resist.
Money talks, dirty cash, I want you, dirty cash, I need you all.
Yep, that's the only thing these Machiavellian corporatists care about. Money is their financial salvation to secure top dog status, to be the winner, a star, a leader, an insatiable obsession to win at all costs. Money always talks, and when it does, it gives them worship energy to fire up their limp egos, otherwise they would feel empty. Whatever remnants or evidence left behind today should have been treated like a crime scene. Bag it, tag it, and keep it in a safe place for future archaeological explorations. It is a tragedy this once mighty ancient monument is destroyed for terra nullius, a first come, first served rule as the first humans set foot on Gympie. However, when they did arrive on our shores, they naively mistaken their strategy for an oversight. Terra nullius was out the window to their horrified dismay that there were others who lived here first. So, they made a mistake and hushed it up. Till this day, terra nullius is implemented for land grabbing of precious resources, guaranteeing everlasting financial success and ego worship for future Machiavellian generations. Therefore, these Machiavellian stooges wanted the good times to keep on rolling to avoid their egos feeling empty. They want to leave behind an unforgotten legacy that wiped clean with pretend amnesia, a vital history to avoid being financially destitute, to go down in history as the first ones to live here. How they got it so wrong. So, what can the Gympie people do? Well, the best thing they can do is put a curse on them. You know, some type of voodoo hex. For fun. Regardless of the countless mainstream false narratives that Gympie Pyramid Mound is still a hoax, a fraud, fake, and a fad has no leg to stand on. Thanks to a brave and curious mining surveyor who stumbled upon a mysterious find than just some farm paddock. He witnessed something remarkably special that no other surveyor had the gumption to come forward with their eyewitness account. John Green deserves credit where it is due. It is possible that John Green was apprehended by a jealous Machiavellian group who examined the hieroglyphs and realised they were not the first arrivals. Aside from political argy-bargy, the biggest question still remains unanswered. Why was Gympie Mound built? What was it used for? So many unanswered questions yet to be explored. In the meantime, let this video be a sad reminder of conquest garbage. This is not the end of the Gympie Pyramid / mound story. There is more, much more to it than what you've been told. I'll be examining the hieroglyphs in more detail that will reveal clues to its origin and why they built this megalithic mound. That's all for now.